Hi everybody, it's Eston. I've been thinking since I made the video a couple of videos ago about human privilege that I wanted to touch on in more detail a topic that I brought up in that video that I feel like is very important to how I came to understand a lot of things, and that is evolution, because I think evolution, biological evolution, I think this is widely, from my experience of my world, it's widely misunderstood by people, and it's rejected or misunderstood really for a couple of main reasons. The first reason is religious, because it conflicts with a religious narrative to some people, so it's rejected outright that way. And then another way I think that it's misunderstood is it's something that is just sort of casually, yes, well, humans evolved, and so I think that there's this idea of humans evolved from animals. And, as I mentioned in that video, we actually evolved, with them, right alongside them. And we were part of them at that time. So I wanted to touch on that, my understanding of evolution, because I think for me, it was such a almost spiritual understanding of the connection of all life. And that connection of all life, informs a lot of my worldview presently. So this is my understanding of evolution, the quick version. And I'm not an evolutionary biologist, so this is just my take on it. So there was. And the other thing about evolution that we have to do first, we have to put ourselves in the mindset of this amount of time. This is really hard to do when a human lives to be like 100 years old or less, 80 to 100 years old typically. And so we have a really short point of view of time. And so when we're talking about evolutionary time, it's out of our scale to even really comprehend it, because it's so far back in time. So the Earth existed for billions of years, probably, before there was an organic molecule, some organic molecules that started to behave lifelike, and they were interacting with their environment, those molecules, and then they became more complex over time. They survived. They became more complex, and they were single-celled at that time. Only one cell, and then there was an evolution where they were able to eventually get more complex, meaning more cells were added. So you just have to put yourself in that time frame of this amount of time passing. So eventually they became, a little more complex, and there was multiple cells in there. Well, at that point, some of them may have been separated geographically from others or whatnot. So they were all the same, but then, because this population was interacting with the environment over here, and this population was interacting with the environment over here, they gradually changed from each other. And this set over here evolved into another, eventually the difference was so great that they actually could be considered to be separate species, although there was never a point where they just suddenly, this went from this kind of species to that kind of species. It was very slow, extremely slow evolution. So, we pick up as that happens, and it just continued on happen over millennia and millennia and eons and eons. And eventually there are there's some of the early complexity that we see, you know, like sponges and you know, then eventually things like grasses and plants and but all of these things they continue to follow this basic same pattern. So when you get a long ways down the line to where, and humans, so you know, humans are part of that because all of life started in this way, in this early way. So if you go back in time, there's actually a book called The Ancestor's Tale that Richard Dawkins wrote. It's kind of a popularized version of evolution, and it's, to me, it was very helpful to understand this sort of relationship between the different species, the current species of animals. So if you go back in time, you know, you can see where the branches connect. So right now, you know, if we're in a tree of life, you know, we're way out here on the outer branches because we're in the present time. But if you start going back towards the trunk, and then towards the roots, you can see, you know, where humans would meet up with, for example, the other primates, because we're a primate. We would meet up with the primates that are most similar to us first. We have what they call a common ancestor, but it's not a one ancestor like we think of our grandparents. It's a common chain of being. And so eventually we would reach that point where we would be able to see that, okay, this is where we were, this is who we were when we were the same as the chimpanzee was the same. That doesn't mean we were a chimpanzee or a bonobo. It means that they go back in time for them and we go back in time for us, and at that point we were the same animal. So we have the same common ancestor. Does that make sense? So then you do the same thing backwards. You would end up through all the vertebrates going back that way, and you would find a common, where you would have a common, they say common ancestor, but this is really not true. It's really the point where you and that animal were the same. So it's not like saying we were dolphins at one point. It's like if dolphins start from where they are today and we start from where we are today, dolphins were different. We were different. But eventually we were in the same. We were the same. We reached the point where we split off and they became something else and we became something else. You can do this for all of life, even plants. So there was a point in time for like a tree or a fern. You can go back in time, and there was a time when we were the same. So to me, that's very enlightening, and it's very liberating because it really connects us to all life. And to me, it's far more descriptive and far more meaningful than just we evolved from whatever, early human or whatever. It's really connecting us all back to one time. So we really are related to everything, all the life on Earth. And so this to me is why violence to animals is so abhorrent, and why because they are us, we are them. They went off in a different direction than we did. This was at some point in time, and far back in time. Some of them not so far back, distant from us, like the other primates, but others, pretty far back. But still, we all the mammals, all the vertebrates, those that we use a lot for food and clothes and entertainment, those are not that far distant related to us, and so they're the species, that we share the planet with. We have multiple. We're a planet with multiple species of life, and we tend to think we're the only life because we're the only ones who organize ourselves in this way. And we have academics and we have science and technology, and so we've been able to subjugate the world this way. But that still doesn't mean that we're not connected to the other species on this planet, and we owe them respect and we owe them their autonomy too. So I wanted to just bring that up and maybe elucidate that a little bit more, because that this whole, to me, this is a very, very meaningful, connecting concept to understand, because once I understood actually that, there was no more in my mind, there was no more room in my mind for we evolved from apes, for example, or we evolved from animals. We didn't evolve from them, we evolved along with them. They're continuing to evolve, we're continuing to evolve. So I hope that was somewhat clear. I just think it's extremely important. If you want to continue the conversation with me about it, head on over to my blog, earnestlyeston.blogspot.com. I'll put the address down in the details here. Or you can find me over at Facebook at Earnestly Eston. But, if you don't want to continue the conversation with me, then just, talk about it amongst your social group or with your friends, or just have a dialogue with yourself. The important thing is to keep the conversation going. That's it. I hope to have some more videos coming soon, and until then, I will see you later.